Welcome to The Explainer. You know, sometimes history serves up these incredible comeback stories. Today, we're diving into one of them. We're heading back to 15th century Spain, a place and a time of serious crisis, to figure out how one man, with just one brilliant idea, managed to save an entire intellectual world from basically disappearing. All right, so let's jump right into the big puzzle here, something that's had historians scratching their heads for a long time. You've got this community, right, and it's just collapsing. But then, at the exact same time, right before this huge catastrophe, you hear stories about this massive intellectual boom. It makes no sense. So, what gives? Okay, to get to the bottom of this, we've got to first understand just how bad things were. And I mean bad. This wasn't some minor dip. We're talking about a full-on intellectual nosedive. So you have these accounts from the early 1400s, like this one from Rabbi Shlomo Alami, and they just paint this really bleak picture. You have to imagine, after decades of persecution, this incredible tradition of scholarship in Spain was just crumbling. The smartest people, the sages, were poor, they were disrespected, and parents, they were telling their sons, go be a tradesman, do anything else, just don't become a rabbi. The whole intellectual engine was just sputtering out. But then something happens, something totally unexpected. Against all the odds, the whole thing just flips. The entire direction changes. And in just a couple of decades, the scene is completely, and I mean completely, different. Yeah, check this out. This quote is a total 180. This is from a guy who was actually there, living through it. And he's saying that scholarship wasn't just getting better, it was at an all-time high. More schools, more students, more brainpower buzzing around than ever before. So the big question is, how in the world does that happen, right before the whole community gets kicked out of the country for good? Well, the answer, as it turns out, really comes down to one person. A brilliant, kind of mysterious figure known as the Gaon of Castile. He's the guy who pretty much engineered this whole comeback. So let's meet our guy, Rabbi Isaac Campanton. And get this, the man lived to be 103. His life stretched across one of the most chaotic periods in Jewish history. He saw the decline with his own eyes, and he decided, nope, not on my watch. Now, Campanton wasn't just some scholar locked away in a library. He was kind of a Renaissance man before the Renaissance was even a thing. Yeah, he ran a big academy, a yeshiva, but he was also a doctor and a mathematician and a public leader. Oh, and a Kabbalist, a mystic. This wide range of skills was basically his superpower. It gave him street cred, In a world that was getting really into science and philosophy, he could speak their language. And the people around him, they didn't hold back. They basically saw him as the savior of their entire generation. They gave him this incredible title, the Gaon of Castile, which was reserved for the absolute top scholar of the time. It was a big deal. That title hadn't been used in Spain for hundreds of years. So he wasn't just a good teacher. He was the guy who, as this quote says, single-handedly put the crown back on Torah study. So how'd he pull it off? It wasn't magic. Campanton's solution was a total revolution in how people thought about this stuff. He saw the real problem, the root of it all, and he came at it with a brand new game plan. Here was the challenge he was up against. All the sharpest young minds were walking away from traditional study. And why? Well, they looked at philosophy and science and saw logic, reason, systems. And then they looked at religious study, and it just felt, kind of fuzzy, less rigorous in comparison. And this is where you see his genius. The old way of dealing with this was to build a wall, right? To say, hey, philosophy is one thing, Torah is another, and they don't mix. Campanton, he did the exact opposite. He built a bridge. Instead of saying logic is bad, he basically stole it. He decided to take on philosophy using its own weapons. He came up with this powerful new idea, a new equation. Talmud is logic. He wasn't just arguing that it was compatible with logic. No, he said it was the ultimate, the highest form of systematic, rational thinking. This one move completely changed the game. All of a sudden, studying Talmud wasn't the old-fashioned thing to do. It was the ultimate mental gym, the most intense, logical workout you could get. And just like that, he made it cool again for the smartest people in the room. And he didn't just talk about it, he wrote it all down. He created this masterpiece. A short book, but wow, it packed a punch. It's called Darkei HaTalmud, which means the ways of the Talmud. He didn't just sell the big idea, he gave everyone the instruction manual. In it, he lays out the super clear 5-step method that anyone can follow to break down a text. And here's the genius part. He connects each step to a verse from the biblical book of Job. This gave his very modern, logical system this deep, ancient, almost spiritual weight. So first, you do a quick scan, get the big picture. He saw it. Then you zoom in on the tiny details, declared it. Then you review, you dig for the deep logic, and only at the very end do you start talking about it and asking new questions. For the time, this kind of systematic thinking was just mind-blowing. He also gave his students these killer analytical tools, using phrases from the Talmud itself. Like, for example, whenever you read something and think, well, duh, that's obvious, you're trained to stop and ask, Pashita. It literally means it's obvious, but you use it as a question. It's a trigger that forces you to say, okay, if it's so obvious, what's the real point here? What am I missing? It's a brilliant way to stop you from just skimming the surface. Another one of his go-to tools was my shna. It means, what's the difference? You pull this one out whenever the text seems to be contradicting itself, like when two cases that look almost identical are treated completely differently. Asking my shna trains your brain to be like a surgeon's scalpel, to find that one tiny, subtle distinction that changes the whole ballgame. I mean, that's the heart of all legal thinking, right? But here's the thing. Campanton's method wasn't just about saving scholarship in Spain. Its true power, its real genius, only became clear after 1492, when everything fell apart. When the community was shattered and thrown into exile, his method became their intellectual survival kit. You see, the beauty of his system was that it was portable. It didn't depend on having a huge library or even one specific teacher. It was like software for your brain. It was a toolkit for thinking that his students could carry around in their heads no matter where in the world they ended up. And this timeline just lays it all out. Campopanton teaches his method in Spain. Then bam, 1492, the expulsion hits, a total disaster. But his students, who are now masters of this mental toolkit, they take it with them. And within a single generation, they use that exact system to build the next great center of Jewish learning, all the way over in Safed. It was the blueprint that let them rebuild their entire intellectual world from the ground up. So the big takeaway here is that Rabbi Campanton's real achievement wasn't just saving a subject. It was creating an educational model that could scale, one that was resilient. He built a system of thinking that was strong enough to survive the absolute destruction of the world it came from. And that kind of leaves us with one last thought, doesn't it? In our own time, when we're drowning in information 24/7, maybe the most important skill isn't just knowing more stuff. Maybe it's having a solid, portable system for thinking critically about it all. Perhaps we could all use our own ways of the Talmud.